Segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. AAl-Hadid, formerly from Tennessee State University, and now acting as a scholar throughout the Nashville area, giving information and directions to many activities. And of course, we're happy to have you here to continue our discussion, Dr. AAl-Hadid, about the evolution of the Africana Studies Department at Tennessee State University, the department that you were responsible for, in a real sense, for establishing or founding. Let's pick it up at that point.
Yes, I think for the benefit of our audience, let's go back to the motive force for creating Africana Studies anywhere in the country. We have to realize that during the slave trade, the Africans were stripped of knowledge of self and kind. They were stripped of their cultures, they were stripped of their languages, their religions, their family systems, in order to transform them into property, in order to transform them into free labor. So once they came to this part of the world, there was a stripping process. Many of your members of the audience might have seen the movie Roots. He left the Guinea coast in the area of Juffure, which is modern-day Gambia, as Kunti Kinte. His language was Mandinka. His religion was Islam. And once he got over here, and then he had an extended family system of a clan system. And so once he got over here, the first thing that he was told was to abandon his name, to abandon his religion, to abandon his language. And so he went from being Kunti Kinte to being Toby. And at first he didn't want to accept this name of Toby, because he said his name was Kunti Kinte, a Mandinka warrior, right? And so he resisted and fought back, and over time they just beat Kunti Kinte out of him and forced him through beatings to call himself Toby. So his language was Mandinka. He went from Mandinka to English. His religion was Islam. He went from Islam to Christianity. So the Africana Studies Project is a humble attempt to restore the values of African cultures, African languages, African land, and African extended family systems. And so that when we look at the curriculum in the Africana Studies Department at Tennessee State, we have African languages in the curriculum. We have Yoruba, which is a West African language primarily from Nigeria. We have Kiswahili, which is an East African language, primarily areas like Kenya and Tanzania. And we also have Arabic, which you can find in North African countries from Egypt all the way over to Morocco. So we're trying to bring the languages back, we're trying to bring the cultures back, we're trying to bring the spirituality back. And hopefully by doing this, this can move peoples of African descent here in the United States from being defined by color and race, being more defined in terms of their culture and their belief systems. Because I think what's happening now is that in those time periods when we were trying to assimilate, mainly during the period of Jim Crow, you know, from Reconstruction all the way, I would say Jim Crow went all the way to the Selma and Montgomery March in 1965. So, you know, that's why we had to get the right to vote all over again, right? And so what I'm saying here is that that was the period of race relations. So we were being defined as a race, and the subhuman part of the human race, you know, as property, as a beast, as an animal. But now I think what's happening, and then at the same time, they were trying to force us to assimilate into white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture, which is a WASP culture. So you had the illusion of assimilation and the reality of Jim Crow, or the reality of apartheid. You know, it's all like, it's like the proverbial horse with the carrot in front of him, and the carrot is attached to his body, so no matter how far he walked toward the carrot, he's never going to reach the carrot, because the carrot is constantly moving away from him. And so that was the same thing that was happening here with us during the period of Jim Crow. Assimilation was constantly moving away from us. And so once we realized that assimilation was not an option, along came Martin Luther King, and he started talking about integration rather than assimilation. And he meant by that mutual power sharing. So it was during this period of integration and during this period of black power that we started talking about establishing black studies programs and black studies departments across the country. Most of them were established early on the white college campuses like Ohio State, University of California, the University of Michigan, and the major white schools embraced that, and they embraced it because that was also at the point where they were, integrating their campuses. And there were a lot of African American students going on to those campuses. A lot of them were athletes, some of them were scholars, and they were also rating the historically black colleges for faculty and for talent. They were rating them for athletes, and they were also rating them for professors and also rating them for students. So at the same time that the white schools are rating the HBCUs for talent and faculty and students, they are claiming that the HBCUs are no longer relevant because, to use your word, that they were an anachronism in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, you don't need black colleges anymore because now we're integrating and everything is fair. But that was certainly not the case, and I think that was probably one of the reasons that the administration, that most of the HBCUs chose not to get involved in establishing black studies programs and departments. But once these departments were established at the Ivy League schools, some of them sort of changed their minds. Schools like Howard and Fisk, Morehouse, Spelman, they started to think, well, maybe we do need some kind of black studies program. But in many instances, they didn't establish freestanding departments. They tended to establish a minor or program that taught certain courses so that you can get a number of classes in the department. So I think that the effort to establish Africana studies at Tennessee State and other HBCUs has been a long and arduous struggle, trying to win the debate that it was necessary to have them because we felt that they were mission essential. Now the point I wanted to establish earlier, as we're shifting the paradigm from race to another category, that means here that now we're starting to talk more about ethnicity, and moving more toward a multi-ethnic democracy. And I think a lot of this discussion about ethnicity has come about because of the fact that we're having a large number of Hispanics that are starting to show their numbers and significance, in the United States. And we're also starting to see that a lot of the immigrants, are coming from foreign countries. So we're shifting now from race relations to ethnic relations. And as you know, in the next decade or so, Hispanics will probably be 1/3 of the population of the United States. Now they're
and we're going to have this first commercial break.
Sure.
And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
Yes.